Thank you all once again for tuning into the show that gives you the scoop on life, news, entertainment, and trends, the Elle Scoop Show. We're going to jump right in it, but first I want to introduce you all to the three ladies that help make this show everything that it is. We've got Freda Harris, who is a local business owner here in Frankfurt. We've got Melody Westerfield, who is the creator of Drinks and Dialogue. And then we've got Zuri Johnson, who is Miss Ohio Plus America 2015. Got the title right. And I'm Lyndsey, your host here at the Elle Scoop Show. We want to make sure in this particular show today, one, to honor the lives of the police department that serves us each and every day, that helps protect us and to keep us safe. They're the first people that we call if there's a problem. So we want to make sure that we give praise to where praise is due. We also want to make sure that we honor the lives of those who lost their lives in the Dallas shooting that recently happened. But in the same breath, we also want to make sure that we honor the lives of those who fall into police brutality in recent news and also in past years. With this particular show, we're dedicating it to addressing the issues surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement. We're dedicating it to the issues surrounding the All Lives Matter movement and addressing that, and also to the details surrounding the Dallas shooting as well. So with that, we're going to jump right into the show, ladies. As you all know, the Black Lives Matter movement is a big campaign that is getting the voice out about Black lives, not necessarily well, let's say this. Let me just ask this. First, is the Black Lives Movement something that you consider a hinder to the African American community? And do you think that the Black Lives Matter is doing a great job of getting the voice of African American people out? What do you all think?
I think,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, I mean, I think that there needs to be clarification about what Black Lives Matter really means.
Exactly.
Right,
It means Black Lives Matter too.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that other lives don't matter just as much. And I said, I think that, I hate that it's been divided like that. From what I've seen in the involvement, I love that it has gotten so many younger people, the young generation, fired up about wanting to make a change in a positive way. And anything that movement does is positive. It does not in any way do anything negative. There are some people who have come along, just like with anything, when you're doing something positive, there's always going to be somebody to kind of put a negative light on it. But I just want to make sure that people understand what it is.
Right. And I completely agree with you that there are some that would try to spin it into a racist organization, which the organization in and of itself is not racist. It's one that brings awareness to the things that are going on in the African American community. And I also believe that it is something that's saying this is what's happening to us. And so that's why we're bringing a light to it. It's not that we are putting ourselves above anyone else, but this is being hidden and people aren't really paying attention to it. So that's why we feel the need to bring this up and bring attention to it so that we're no longer being ignored. Because I'll be honest with you, the things that the Black Lives Matter movement have brought light to, they aren't new, but social media has had a strong impact on us seeing all these things that are going on.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of what you said. It's needed in this community. It's needed. It's needed in the community, and I'm happy to be a part of it, actually. So that's all.
I totally agree. I do not think, a lot of people want to compare the Black Lives Matter movement to the All Lives Matter movement, and saying that you know, all lives matter when people say Black Lives Matter, and all lives do matter, but in certain instances there are lots of injustices that African Americans face that really need to be brought to the table, and we are at a point in time, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that maybe we got a black president, or you know, maybe we're in a time where people just are wanting change, and so there are certain things that we have to bring to the table, and we have to talk about, especially some of the issues that we have surrounding the recent police brutality that we've seen on social media. So
I'm going to pass it on to you, but I've even seen it compared to if someone were wishing someone else a happy Veterans Day, which there's this controversy about wishing Happy Veterans Day. But if someone were to reply, well, don't we celebrate all Americans? Well, that's fine in and of itself, but today what we're looking at is the veterans and those people that gave their lives for our country. So that's what we're addressing right now. It has nothing to do with the rest of the world that's going on.
And I think, and just to wrap that part up, someone made the comparison that, do you go to a cancer rally and say, well, AIDS matters too? You know, the focus is on this particular issue. It's not taking away from anything. It's not discounting anything else, but at this moment, this is what we need you all to understand. And speaking of that, do you all think that protesting and boycotting anything, do you think that that really produces progress for a cause? As of late, there's been a lot of that over the last, I guess, couple of years with people doing that. And what it has produced, to me, I think it has done a lot of positive results. I think what it's done is it's brought attention to things that maybe other people thought just didn't exist any longer. So what do you all think about that? And have you all ever rallied for a cause or anything?
I think it depends on how it's done. I think when you have the situation that took place, I think it was in Baltimore last year, years before, where they were busting out windows. I think what happened is that people missed the very reason why they were rallying and what they were standing up for. And I think that we have to remember to not change the narrative by our actions, and that we have to be sure to protest in a way that people hear our voices. They hear what the concern is, and that there's no other noise in the background that confuses people, because when people say protesting now, they think, well, they're just out there just burning up cars and catching people on fire and, you know, all that stuff. And I want to make sure that the narrative is what we intended it to be when we stand up and protest. So,
I totally agree with you.
That the matter doesn't get lost in the confusion.
The peaceful. Keeping it peaceful. I think you're exactly right. There's nothing more I can say behind that, just that it's peaceful. You miss it when it's not, and it's violence, and you're doing things out of anger. Like, I mean, we're frustrated, and it's, you know, you want to do a peaceful but motivating march, but you don't, like you said, want to get it
to incite violence.
I've actually participated in a few protests on the campus here in Frankfurt years ago when Genesis happened. People were standing outside the student center dressed in all black, and I remember being a part of that. And then when it was Senate Bill, I think it was like SB 6, it was dealing with the undocumented citizens. I was involved with that. But the point of most protests is to get people's attention and to bring the attention to that story. But I do think there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it. And when they start violence, then I think it's no longer a protest, it becomes a riot.
Well, I was on social media the other day, and I came across a post that was a video that said it had a lot of Caucasians in the white people or black people alike in the post, and it was a video, and some of the signs that they were holding said white silence. It's violence as well against black people. And I just wonder what y'all think about those statements. That statement is white silence is violence against black people. What do you think about that?
So are they saying that if other races are silent when we're trying to rally for a cause, then that could equal violence?
Yeah, like them not speaking up.
I'll say this. So Desmond Tutu once said, and he is an activist that was in Africa, but he said that if you remain silent in times of injustice, then you've chosen the side of the oppressor. And I don't think that has a color. I don't think that it comes with, you know, a race attached to that. I think that is anyone that sees that an injustice has happened and you choose to remain silent about that. With that being said, though, I do think that we kind of tend to polarize when injustices happen and go to our own groups and then also point the finger and say, hey, this particular group is not with us. And I don't think that's necessarily true. You know, if we look back in the time of like civil rights, white people were very instrumental in helping us move forward.
Yes.
And if we did not have white people who were in positions of power, and even those who weren't, that rallied and marched with us, then we wouldn't be where we are today. So I think that anybody that remains silent, regardless of color, if you scratch the white out, if you remain silent and you realize that there's an injustice, then yes, you're part of the problem. But I also think that, you know, we have to realize that we're a team, right? And
it's all one.
we have to have everyone pull through in order for things to change.
I agree.
I agree with that as well. I noticed that actually there are several people, several Caucasians or members of other races that are standing up and standing alongside the African American race in this matter, because I personally don't believe that this is a black versus white or black versus them type issue. It's just an issue of this is what's happening to us. It's not, you know, anyone else is out to get us necessarily, except for those that are not acting in protocol with what their duties are. But I think it's, you know, this is what they're doing, and there needs to be some type of justice, because every time something happens, that is when we no longer receive, you continue to see more people speaking out, because something will happen. Unfortunately, someone will not act along with their job, and then there's no justice that's served. And I think any race can come together and agree that the lack of justice is what the issue is.
I totally agree. I think we are living in a world where we want to see unity, where we want to see things change between the African American community and also the police community. And we recently did an interview with the Chief of Police, Chief Abrams, and we discussed a lot of the issues in the African American community and also with the police as well. And I live to see the day. First, and let me say this, I believe there are a lot of great police officers.
I do. I agree as well.
I mean, I listen, in the line of fire, I'm standing with one. Like, listen, I'm behind him. But I'm just saying, in the same token, I do think that there are lots of issues that have to be discussed when you are bringing people that have bad experiences into a place where they are with the police, really, and really kind of understanding that from a community perspective of where they're coming from, and then the police force also understanding where a lot of African Americans come from and the fear that they hold based on what they've experienced and also what they've seen on the news. So we are going to go cut to the video. It is time, ladies. Listen, before we do that, I want you all to know that the show airs every Sunday at 5 o'clock and also on prime time at 8 o'clock. I'm excited about that. If you have any questions that you would like for us to know or that you'd like for us to address on the show, please email us at info@ellescoop.com. And also check out the website. It's ellescoop.com. That's ELLE scoop.com. Until next time, you all stay tuned for the interview with Chief Abrams. Hello everyone, as promised, Mel and I are here with Chief Abrams, who is with the Frankfurt Police Department here in Frankfurt. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been the chief in Frankfurt.
I have been the chief. September 1st will be 2 years, and I've been with the police department since 1996. So October of this year will be my 20-year anniversary with the department.
Oh wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So, as you know, with all the things that have taken place in the news recently, especially with the Dallas shootings, what was your response, or what was your first thought when you first heard about the shootings that took place in Dallas?
Just sincere remorse and just, you know, I actually was flipping through the channels trying to doze off the bed, and it was maybe 10:30 or so, and you know, I kind of got captivated by it and had to force myself to turn it off about 1:30 in the morning, and you know, it's just sheer sadness. You know.
I totally agree. When I watched it, it caught everybody off guard. I woke up to it in the morning and thought, oh no, what happened? And we know that I guess 2 days prior to that, there had been a shooting from Alton, Alton's, what's his last name?
Sterling.
Sterling,
Yeah.
Thank you. And then a shooting with Philando Castile as well. And then this came, I guess, 2 days after that happened.
Right.
What were your first thoughts when you found out that, that one, well, let me ask it this way. When you found out that the shootings were surrounded by the recent shootings that have taken place with black males, did it make you rethink how you would approach certain issues with the Frankfort community as the chief?
You know, yes and no. You know, I think I pride myself in this department in the fact that we treat everyone, and always have and always will, as equals. You know, my philosophy is we're policing human beings.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And you know, back in probably 2001, we instituted a racial profiling policy even before it was on vogue. And we did that proactively because we wanted to ensure that our enforcement was surely human beings and not individuals based on any other demographic. And you know, that allows us to track that and to even report on that if necessary. So you know, that's something I'm very proud to be a part of with the Frankfort Police Department. And you know, I think that the majority of police departments, the vast majority of police departments, are the same way. You know, they have the same philosophy on the application of police work.
Well, you mentioned the 2001 racial profiling procedures that you put through. What is that?
What that is, and that's a good thing for people to know in our community. Prior to that, a lot of our traffic stops, if it was for a simple equipment violation or something of that nature, the officer may just give a verbal warning and then you know, clear. So with the onset of that policy, now officers are required to write something, whether it be a written warning or a citation or whatever the case may be, to document that traffic stop. And by doing so, you know, it does collect those demographics, and it helps us to see if there is a concern in any area, whether it's race, sex, gender, you know, whatever the case may be.
I love it.
Do you think that that's helped correct some issues that may have been in place before, or?
I am very proud to say that I don't think we had an issue, but waiting until you have an issue isn't always the time to implement something to prevent it from ever becoming an issue. So, you know, I never really saw that beforehand, and I certainly haven't seen it since. And, you know, I think it's just a way for us to document and illustrate what we were already doing.
In a lot of, and I think we've all heard this on the news, that in a lot of minority communities, there's a lot of fear associated in working with the police in some way. So when encountering a police officer in a car, oftentimes there are, you know, like the African-American, a lot of males in the African-American community feel like there's some hesitation to maybe roll down the window or maybe get out of the car or maybe even engage in dialogue. How do you handle that as a police officer, or how do you train maybe your officers in how to deal with some of those issues that may come about based on maybe past experience or just word of mouth of what's taking place in the past?
You know, that's difficult, and I think what we're doing right here is a big step in that. And it's not a matter of just educating the police officers to keep their cool, but also the community on how to play their role in that interaction. You know, very rarely is, if ever, is being pulled over by the police going to be a pleasant experience for anyone, you know.
That's for sure.
Right. We strive to keep a level of professionalism that minimizes the negativity of that. But it does instantly escalate the level of that contact when someone is resistant like that. So my assurance to the community is we're going to treat you fairly. You know, and I've said this time and time again, and I'm sure over the next few weeks I'll say it more. Our criminal justice system is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's still the best one in the world. You know, so there are avenues to contest, whether it be a citation or an arrest or a criminal charge. There are excellent avenues for that. We have internal processes within the police department if our officers are out of line to deal with them, and we hear every citizen complaint and we look into every citizen complaint. So on the traffic stop, on the side of the road, that just isn't the time to debate those kind of things because it's not going to end well. Very rarely, you know, and so You know, we train our officers. Number one, the vast majority of your community is not against you. There's a very small percentage that would do you harm. And so to treat everyone with that level of respect, and when it's a mutual thing. You know, I treat you with respect, you treat me with respect, and although it may not be the most positive of interactions because of the circumstances surrounding it, it's going to end favorably for both and all.
We like that. We like that. And you mentioned this earlier. You said that it's not just the police's responsibility to know, and there's a responsibility of the community to respond favorably to the police, and then it's the responsibility also of the police officer to respond favorably to whoever it is that they're stopping and pulling over.
Absolutely.
One of the questions that I have is, what's the protocol for the person that's getting pulled over? Like, what's the expectation from the police officer if they're getting pulled over for a traffic violation? And then two, what's the normal protocol for a police officer as well?
Okay. You know, officers, I can tell that you're, we just met, but I can tell that you're a very nice, very pleasant lady.
That's definitely true.
No.
I'm not sure about Melbourne.
In trouble.
No, but unfortunately, when it's dark out, you know, it's midnight, and we pull over a car, as we make that approach, we don't know who's in there. You know, and it's not that we assume everyone's going to hurt us, but you do have to do so with caution. So the officers are going to approach cautiously. It's our policy, after it gets dark, to have another police officer respond as a backup. And you know, over the years, it's important to mention, because over the years I have had people take exception to that, saying, well, I'm not a hardened criminal, why are there two cops here? You know,
it can be scary.
Yeah.
That can be very scary to have more than one person standing at your window talking to you, especially in a dark night, because sometimes they have flashlights. So I can understand why.
Right. But it's important for people to consider the fact that that's not just for officer safety, that's for the individual safety as well. You know, the more eyes that are on there, the less likely that maybe a misperception of a movement, such as in Minnesota, may be. If the officer's on the passenger side as well, they can say, oh, no, his wallet's right there, I see it. You know, maybe, right. You know, something like that. So it's both for the person in the vehicle and the other officer's safety that we do that. So their protocol is very much to approach it cautiously, but absolutely, without a doubt, unless cause to do otherwise, with the utmost professionalism, of courtesy, of respect. You know, and we expect that if we give that to people, we expect that they'll give that to us in return. And 99% of the time, that's true, and that's the way that it works. As far as the person in the vehicle, you know, I think that if they will keep in mind that anything they can do to minimize that level of heightened awareness in the officer, that's their goal, or that's their contribution to ensuring that contact goes along positively. You know, for instance, you may, if it's nighttime, as soon as you pull off to the, first of all, I don't fault anyone, especially females, if it takes you a few minutes to get to a lighted area. You know, of course you slow down, you maybe use your turn signal and show the officer, okay, I'm complying, but I'm going to wait a moment. And I think that's perfectly fair. I think the police understand that. But also maybe turn on your interior light. Maybe go ahead and have your window down. I tell you something that's really good, and I just thought about this recently with some of these cases, and of course it's always, you never lose an opportunity to learn from anything, especially a tragedy. You know, maybe if you had a little envelope or something that you kept your license or your registration and insurance in above your sun visor, so that you're not reaching over under the seat and that kind of thing, that helps.
That's a good tidbit.
That is.
Yeah.
Because you know, women always keep their stuff in the
bottom, or in the bottom of their purse. Digging, and I have no idea where it is.
Right. To keep that stuff organized and readily accessible, that goes a long way to minimize that level, that high level of safety that the officer feels like they need to engage in. And certainly, you know, one thing that's important for people to remember, and you mentioned earlier, I don't want to roll into it, I don't want to talk to you, and I get that. I understand that there's some people that have that perception of police, and I'm sure that that's earned. Especially, of course, with having Kentucky State here, we have some officers, some citizens and students that are from some bigger cities that the interaction is going to be different. You know, we have several from the Detroit area, and Detroit's a very dangerous town. So I feel certain, and I don't know for sure, but I feel confident that the police probably are a little more heightened in awareness when they engage people up there. So, you know, that conditioned response coming in with those people is going to be a little bit different because of their past experiences. But my point was, driving a vehicle is not a right. It's a privilege.
Okay.
And that's something for people to remember that's important. So to refuse to hand over your insurance, your registration, your driver's license is a criminal offense. So regardless of whether you want to debate that later in court as far as your guilt, that privilege is and can be revoked for failure to do that. So that's going to take it to a level that it doesn't need to go to refuse to provide that information.
Okay. I like it. And then our last question, because Dave has told us that we're at our 10-minute mark. But I was wondering, you know, there are a lot of, on the news, there are a lot of questions now as to what's being done by the police force to make sure that they're maybe hiring or offering like sensitivity classes to certain communities. And I was wondering, are there any hiring, you know, I guess tactics that you have that, you know, to kind of maybe gear in on a person's perception of certain communities, not just African American communities, but maybe how they may feel about gay community, the LGBTQ community, or really any community, how they feel about women or towards men, if you're hiring a female police officer. Are they things that you're putting into force when you're doing interviewing on the front end before they actually become police officers?
Yes, it is. You know, we have a systematic, it's a civil service process, and they go through several interviews. Actually, they go through one with community members that are mayor appointed board, and then if they rank high enough in the eligibility list, they actually come in and have a secondary interview with the majors and I. And there are a lot of questions that are focused on soliciting a response to determine whether or not that individual is going to show bias in any area. Also, the police academy in Kentucky, we're very fortunate. We have second to none police and law enforcement training, and they're doing a great job right now of integrating. They just went to 23 weeks, and one of the reasons is because they integrated that and implemented a sensitivity training and cultural awareness, which is very important. You know, and also internally, one of my goals since I've been chief is to improve the demographics of our police department. The police department has to be representative of the community that it serves. And so, you know, we are working and we've got some great hires. But we've hired the first African American female.
She's my friend.
Yeah, she's awesome. Deja. One of our parking enforcement officers just graduated from K-State, super young man named Thomas Minor. And then actually next week, Demetrius Lyndsey's going to get out, and he's just a superb young man. He's real motivated for community-oriented policing. So by improving those demographics, I think it helps us to engage the different areas. We have, I think, 5 female officers now. And we're a 62-man department, so that's pretty good ratio nationally compared to the national. And then, you know, that's important. That's important to have those demographics, and I'll tell you real quick why. Because regardless of my empathy and my sincere love for all people in our community, I am a white male, and I always have been. So anytime I have ever interacted with the police, I have done so as a white male. And, you know, and I told Nokomis recently, I said, you know, that's something huge that you can bring to this table, because the cultural differences are going to be perceived differently by me than they will be by him, or you know, someone who has grown up in that different environment. And he's from the Detroit area too, so he has a really unique perspective. So I think that's important, and I think that the other officers, although they won't have that natural ability maybe to interact on that cultural level, they can learn from Nokomis and from the other officers that are coming in. So we're excited about that, and we're going to continue to work forward, move forward on that.
Well, thank you. Not only for the interview, I'm very thankful that you took the time to talk to us today, but I also want to thank you for risking your life every day. You know, when my burglar alarm goes off at home because of something I did, left the window up, something, you know, the first person that's called are the police. And I depend on them to be there when I get to the house to search it and to say, hey, everything's good, you're okay. So I really appreciate all the things that you do, not just in Frankfort, but...
Well, thank you. Our profession is truly an honor, and people like yourself, that's why we do it.
Thank you.
Is there anything you would like to add, or you want anyone else to know about?
Yeah, actually, we've got a couple events coming up that have been organized throughout the community. This Saturday at 1:30 in front of Franklin County High School, this coming Saturday, we're going to be doing a kind of a prayer circle with the community and some of the pastors and the county have put together. And so we're going to try to get as many officers as we can freed up to come up to that.
Yeah.
And then a week from today, on Thursday, July 21st at 5:30, the commission is working with the faith-based community to organize a unity walk, just to show that the police are the community and the community are the police.
Yeah.
So, and we're just going to do that real briefly, just to say, hey, we've got your back, you've got our back, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
We mean no one harm.
Yeah.
You know?
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank
Melanie.
you.